So you need to niche in your bookkeeping practice, but you don't know where to start. In this video, we're going to take you through 5 profitable niches for bookkeeping practices.
Welcome to the Bookkeepers Podcast, sponsored by Xero.
Okay, niching. We talk about it a lot in our community, in the Bookkeepers Collective, and people get really stuck with this.
They get really overwhelmed and they often say to us, but I don't know who my ideal client is. Where do I start with this? I've never had a client before. I've never had a client that I like working with. So how can I find my ideal client?
Yeah, I suppose from a point of view of why is this even important, I think that's what we need to go back to, because when you know who your ideal client is or what niche you're working with, you can design the service you offer around that type of business.
Yeah, and I think today when we go through these 5 different areas, it's going to become very evident as to why it's important to niche. You don't have to go as deep as most people think. I think people assume that you're only servicing one industry or one area.
One very specific part of an industry, like a very specific, this kind of shop that's on this high street in this town.
Exactly. And it doesn't need to be like that. It needs to be a certain type of business with potentially certain type of values and mindset. There are so many ways that you can niche. But today we're going to go through the areas of business that kind of, there's groups of certain types of businesses that act in a similar way and need a similar type of finance setup.
And I suppose having the detail of that ideal client persona is helpful when it comes to marketing, because you can work out where that person is and you can get yourself in front of them. But from a point of how you service that business and other businesses similar to it, the systems that you need in your bookkeeping practice actually are the same.
And me and you have looked through this list of the certain areas and we've both said, I've had clients in this area and this area. But then we spoke about why we chose that, even though we were quite clear on, but it was because of values, because they came to us irrespective of our marketing and it wasn't really meant for them, but they were like, I want to work with you. And I had one client once, I said to him, I cannot serve you in the right way, because it was a food-based business and I'd never worked with one of those before. And he wanted some kind of different things set up and coding and projects. And I'd never worked with Xero projects before because of my client base didn't have that. So I actually said no to him. And then he came back, he said, I've interviewed other people. I want it to be you. I'm willing for you to take your time to learn this and I will pay you more because I know I'm not in your niche.
Nice, I love that.
Yeah, so it doesn't stop you doing that, but it's so helpful to know who it is you serve, how you serve them, and the systems and processes and the software that you're going to use, because you can automate everything, which means you leverage your time and you become more profitable.
Yeah. Okay, so group number 1, we're talking about service-based agencies. So these are service providers who operate on a kind of agency model. So I'm thinking about like marketing and design agencies. I definitely focused on this sector. I'd worked with people who were doing kind of project-based work. It might include people like web developers or people who are building apps. It might be people who are video production or advertising agencies or consultancy firms. HR consultancy, the kind of people that you would speak to about maybe sustainability consultancy.
Yeah, so that is a type of, but there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different types of businesses in this kind of sector, but they all are raising invoices. They have teams, they have people that are in there, they have office costs. They very likely have an office, a building that has similar kind of expenses related to it. I kind of think of this, I had a few of these and, they'd have the cleaner come in, they'd have the tea and coffee, they would maybe have people that are working for them that were subcontractors. Not everybody was employed in the business. It was very people cost heavy.
Yeah.
Because they're offering a service.
Yeah, so you'd have like the managing directors, the partners, they would meet regularly, they'd like talk about the strategy and they'd have some KPIs that they're measuring about the performance of a project or what the cost is so far. They're probably doing some kind of time-based billing so they can understand where their team's time is going. And then they have a project that they've maybe pitched to the client and they're invoicing for that. It might be staged payments. So they take a deposit and then they take another payment when a certain point is reached. So your job as the bookkeeper is to stay on top of that, like cash flow, because
Yes.
their cash flow is probably quite choppy, but their expenses are pretty
linear.
Yeah.
They're mostly gonna need payroll support and VAT support, and monthly reporting.
Yeah.
Most probably cash flow forecasting as well, and some, there may be some vehicles, mostly some expenses. I can see business lunches and things like that are going to be spent. They'll have certain types of insurances going out. But once you understand what that kind of business looks like, you can pretty much service all of those under that umbrella in a very similar way.
One of the things that this reminds me of is the kind of clients who might have they probably got some kind of project management system that they're using to track their clients through. So they might be doing their time recording in there, but also they might be invoicing from there. So this might be where the invoice is happening outside of the accounting software. And probably their team, like this system, this CRM or whatever, is like their central point of all information and data, and they always talk about that system, and you don't have any visibility of it. So your job might be to get like read-only access at least to that software to make sure that everything is replicated in the accounting software, or just working out how you get these things to connect up.
Absolutely. It's the kind of business that's going to have work in progress going on, that will need reporting of, this is the kind of work you've got in the bank. You've already worked towards this project, and you might have to do a work in progress report every month to say, this is what we're expecting that you're going to invoice in the next 6 weeks or so. So it's a very different type compared to, a shop or something. So understanding that, but also I think what you said there about there's usually going to be some directors, and they're going to mostly not be big enough for a full-time member of staff or a whole team in finance, but they do really want you to come in as that virtual finance director and share with them what you know about their business from the financial side.
Okay, let's talk about the second group then. So the second one, and I'm going to hold my hands up, this is absolutely not my expertise, trades and construction businesses. A very specific area with very specific needs.
Yeah. You might have, like builders and plumbers, electricians. You may have people that are dealing with plant hire, going out on site. So again, there's going to be timesheets, but there's going to be this heavy machinery. There might be vehicles that need to be managed. And I remember having to do a lot of stuff with FORS, which is, I can't remember what it stands for, but it's all about making sure that the standard of the vehicles was safe. The health and safety executive is like somebody that they're scared of, and everything relates to money. If they had a massive accident on site and they had to have a huge payout, that impacts the business. So there's a lot of that kind of thing, but also CIS will be a different tax that maybe you wouldn't have to deal with in a different sector.
And we've got bookkeepers in our community who are real CIS specialists. And I think that it is a bit like payroll can be like a whole other area of knowledge, can't it? And some people choose to just focus in on payroll. There are bookkeepers who are like, do you know what, CIS is my expertise. I've maybe worked in a role before where I've got like really extensive experience, so I'm the perfect person for that. And I think knowing, when we talk about niching, knowing what you do know and knowing what you don't know and when you need somebody else is really helpful.
Absolutely. And again, it's a bit like, is this an area that you're interested in, or do you know people that are in this area and get to kind of understand their frustrations and you think, oh, I could support them with that? A lot of the time, if you think of these kind of industries, they have great skills in what they're doing, but finance isn't the one. And so I think there's an opportunity here to really help them with getting the money in before they spend the money. We see this often where, if they've got a big job coming up, then they have to invest. Maybe they have to hire machinery. Maybe there are licenses and insurances that they have to get and invest on. And you can help them make sure that they've been paid for that ahead of time, so it's not dipping into their cash.
Like they're taking an appropriate deposit. And a lot of their work is going to be based on particular deliverables and targets, a little bit like we were talking about like agencies before. There are going to be staged payments that happen when certain things have been achieved, but they are going to have that big lumpy cash flow again. They're going to need some help to manage that. They might even need you to be thinking about like, where is the right place to store that like if you were to say to a client, you've got a lot of money in your current account right now, let me introduce you to somebody who can support you with that. That's an opportunity for you to be an expert.
Absolutely.
You've also got supplier accounts. I'm thinking about people who would be buying materials, like price of timber. It's like that it can really vary. So what do you do to help them manage the risk? They're going to have to buy this timber in the future. How do you make sure that the money is there, or they're charging the client the right amount of money?
Are there discounts for, paying up front for things? Or, a lot of these businesses, if you pay your bills quicker, you might get a percentage off. So you're incentivized to do that. Can the cash flow support that? You mostly have got, they mostly got warehouses. So there might be stock management, but also like a whole building there that needs to be managed, and there'll be lots of costs associated with that. So keeping an eye on things like electricity and water and gas, and maybe they have they're paying for their business rates, but they might be eligible for small business rate reductions. But no one's thought to phone the council and ask. So that could be somewhere where you could add value.
I think there's probably within this sector, there's like the smaller businesses who are
the one-man bands,
the one-man band, or a small team of builders, plumbers, like regional plumbing firm. And then there's also like the large construction business but that do one or two projects at a time, not the like national like building firms.
Exactly.
So it's understanding who those clients are and what kind of setup they have. I'm thinking as well, they also probably have credit accounts with like trades, like, when you go to Screwfix.
Trade UK and absolutely. And also fuel cards and things like that. There's going to be lots of different elements, but you can see how this is such a different business to the first one we mentioned, and there are so many opportunities and so many types of businesses that fit under this umbrella, but they all need that similar kind of expertise.
But they want you to be kind of hands off. They need someone who's going to deal with all that paperwork that's sitting on the dashboard in their van.
Yes, absolutely. You need to hold them accountable, but here I think you do need a good skill in explaining why it's important, so they don't just think you're a pain in the bottom.
Said by someone who's experienced
I have definitely experienced that,
Okay, group 3, health and wellness businesses with premises. This is your ideal client.
So this is where the salon owners, the estheticians, I had someone that was a physiotherapist, osteopath. So you've got premises, you've got rooms. This is something that I was able to do. You have rooms that if they're not making money, if someone's not in there at that time, I was able to say to them, that room's not making you any money. Why? We need to get marketing. So, that's costing you money to run that room. I used to do like analysis of how much it costs to be open when no one's in there, and this is how much, like, this is the baseline, this is how many clients you need in every day to just cover your costs, and then anything over. Things like staff incentives, they need to work as a team. They need to be making sure, I used to do like strategy around rebooking clients, making sure that their staff were asking the person if they wanted them to rebook at that point. There was so many things, extra things that I could do around that. Also, they all had different point of sale systems.
So till systems.
And
booking systems as well.
100%, all done there. And I'd be able to advise them that things around like IR35, if the hairdressers were using that system, then really they needed to be employed.
Oh, nice.
Things like that. But also those systems had so many reporting elements to it, but none of my clients ever really dived in. They were using it to see when people were turning up and making sure they paid, or whether they had a deposit or anything, but they weren't going into the how much time is these rooms sitting empty, or how many times, what's the lifeline of a client if we get that client in? Is it worth spending money on networking or marketing, because what's that going to give us back in lifetime retention?
Oh my gosh, you've just got me thinking about an experience I had at the hairdresser's yesterday, Jo. So I went to a hairdresser yesterday, recommended by you, and my hair was blow dried by an employee hairdresser. I usually go to a self-employed hairdresser, and the self-employed hairdresser pays a cut of her fee to the salon for using that chair. And I was talking to the hairdresser yesterday about how I get a WhatsApp from my hairdresser who's like, oh, I've got an availability on this date. Do you want, we could move your whatever. And so she's really like proactive in getting me in. And this other hairdresser said to me, well, because I'm an employee, they say to us, oh, you should really try and get us to be a bit busier. But she's not incentivized to do that because she's an employee. So
she's going to get paid the same
regardless whether she's busy or not. And it just got me thinking about, you were talking about that empty room. So as being that strategic advisor, which we all can be as bookkeepers, and which you can be so much better when you can see inside that salon and that salon and that salon, and you can see what's working for each. You could be having a conversation about, well, what if you were to rent that room out to someone who wants to do hypnotherapy sessions or something like that? Like, how do you make that possible so that you can earn more while having the same overheads?
Exactly that. One of the biggest things that I used to do was talk about the return on investment on their employees. And I would say to them, because I had that point of sale system, I would be able to say, this member of staff generated you this income this month. And they go, that's not even covered their wages. And I'm like, I know. Hence why we're having this conversation. Because really, and what, when I was doing this, it may have changed now, it might have gone up. But my aim with each of the employees in the businesses I was supporting was to get 3 times their salary as a return on investment. Then there was enough money to cover the overheads of the building, to have a receptionist there, to pay for Facebook and Google ads, all of these things. And and they were like, I'd never realised that was the aim of this business.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, because they think the goal is to go out and deliver nice treatments for people.
Absolutely. And think that they're, busy and how much money's in the bank.
Yeah.
They don't realise that there's clues everywhere.
Yeah. So a business like this is going to be dealing with payroll for lots of staff doing different hours, potentially part-time staff as well. So their holiday calculations might be a bit more complicated. Commission, they might be worrying about the VAT threshold if they're not registered yet.
Yes.
Although I always think, like, we're not talking about tiny solo hobbyist businesses here. We're talking about businesses that can pay you a decent bookkeeping fee for you to justify the level of service. So I would hope that they would be VAT registered for most people watching this episode.
I had a lot that I helped get through that bit.
Nice.
So a lot of them came to me, maybe they had 1 part-time member of staff, they had 2 or 3 chairs, they were on the cusp, but they were scared. And if I could help them get through that by helping them price correctly and get the return on investment, they sailed through VAT registration and the threshold. And then I was able to help them to get the 200, 300,000 mark.
Nice. So they've also got lease costs, premises costs, rents, whatever. And they've got machinery, which I never even think about but of course.
Yeah.
They've got all sorts of machines
Waxing,
that do clever things.
lipo things, facelifters,
tanning things,
bum tighteners. They've got it all. And the thing is as well with this kind of industry is that they're looking for the next shiny thing that's going to transform their salon or, the physiotherapist, she had ultrasound machine to help see what was going on as well. So they want to use technology like we do to help them give a better result. But some of these machines and simple things that I used to do was they'd say to me, oh, it's only going to cost this a month. And I'd say, can I have a look at the lease agreement? And I'd have a look. And then I'm like, yeah, over 15 years, this is going to cost you £120,000, this machine. And I'm not even joking. Yeah. Like they are being sold to all the time. And this was something I was able to really help with because there's lots of products and businesses that come in that want to sell in their salon or in their premises. And they get sold this and then they have to bulk buy stock and stock as well is another thing all the time as well.
Yeah. So you've got stock takes, you've got depreciation. Also, you're probably dealing with, some products that they're selling, but also some services they're selling. So you've got like this mixed income and you want to be able to attribute that to a particular member of staff so you can see who's hitting their targets.
Yeah. And also something that really helps is their marketing. So the KPIs, the key performance indicators that they needed was like, who are we reaching? If we need new customers, how many people do we have on the email list? How many people are following our Instagram? And as a bookkeeper, it's just other numbers and you can find that out and tell them that every month.
Brilliant. Okay. The fourth type of small business that could be great for a bookkeeper, professional services and franchises.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, franchises are such an opportunity. If you can get in with a franchise and then the other franchisees are telling the other franchisees about you,
Yeah.
that's a gold mine.
I did this once.
Oh, tell me.
I don't think I've ever spoken about it. Jim's Mowing. Jim's Mowing. So Jim's Mowing was a franchise in Australia.
Okay.
And my mum being who she is, she had seen and read a book about franchising, and she'd seen this opportunity, and they were wanting to come over to the UK. So my stepdad flew over to Australia, and he did all his training over there, and then they came back, and they were based in Kent, the head office. And I wanted to support him in his new business. And I went to the head office one day and introduced myself. And then I was handed all of these other franchisees.
Oh, my goodness. I love that. I didn't realise that he was Jim's Mowing with the...
Yeah.
Wow, I love this. Okay. So, but there are plenty of other franchises.
So many.
And I'm thinking, like, these are the kind of clients who are like recruitment agencies. Like, it's basically where someone is paid a commission. Like,
Yes.
someone else finds you
Does
the
the
work. Or
marketing.
the main work is a different piece of work, but the
Yeah.
way you get paid as a service provider is some kind of cut or
Yeah.
commission.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're talking about estate agents, letting agents.
There might be fees that you pay on a monthly basis to have the privilege of using this brand.
Mm-hmm.
And then then they give you books of clients and they give you the leads, and your job is to do the servicing. So they're usually very busy people. They're not natural CEOs. They've not chosen to set this business up for themselves. They've got a business in a box.
Yeah. Well, they've chosen to set it up, but not in that way necessarily.
Yeah.
And I think one of the real benefits about franchises is that there is a head office and there is a way of doing things, and it's quite structured.
Very.
That you have to work within the requirements. So they will expect financial reporting.
If you think like the biggest franchise we all know is McDonald's,
Yeah.
and you think of how automated and how everything is just so, because if you think it's run by teenagers, it is run like this multi-billion-pound business is run by teenagers because of the systems that are included. So yes, you're right, absolutely. Franchises are a great opportunity to get that business in a box, go and do it. You choose your own hours. It's like a mixture of everything. You get to choose your own hours, you get to network with who you want, but you've kind of been told this is the way to run the business. This is the best way to do it. The other great thing they do is tell you how to price, which is what most people struggle with, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so there are going to be care franchises, coaching franchises, tutoring.
Yeah, there's bookkeeping franchises as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are tax
Cleaning.
assist,
Yeah.
accountants. They're a franchise.
Yeah. Food stores, all sorts of things. So the kind of things that we want to be thinking about as a bookkeeper, if we were niching in this area, all of those kind of businesses are going to have team. They're going to have payroll. They're going to have some kind of rent they're paying for, possibly for like a high street presence.
Yeah.
But they're going to be paying every month to be part of that franchise,
Yeah.
to have access to all of the resources.
Most really access to a website and things like that, and a telephone helpline and things like that. They've got a bigger team behind the team.
Yeah.
So it's quite nice for you as well, because there will be someone at head office that you can talk to who will understand that business so well.
Yeah, and they're going to really respect any systems and deadlines because they're used to that, and they knew that was the deal when they
They will
joined.
also have to report themselves monthly back to the franchisor.
Yeah.
So they're going to be really focused and want that information from you.
Yeah. So your job is to make sure that their bookkeeping is done. You're really offering a recurring monthly bookkeeping package to that kind of client, and you're communicating with the client to pick up on things that are going to help them to succeed more within that franchise.
A lot of them as well have, they'll have an accountant that is part of the franchise. So you won't necessarily need to do the financial reporting at the end, the compliance stuff. They will want the payroll, VAT, and everything done. And at the end, of course, because it's like a group set of accounts, that accountant will deal with that for every franchisee.
Yeah. Okay, right, our fifth and final group, which brings together lots of different kinds of businesses, particularly in the sort of gig economy we've got now, e-commerce. So, but we're not talking about the small Etsy seller I keep coming back to, the person who's selling a couple of things on Etsy for a hobby. We're talking about the scaled e-commerce businesses who have been really successful, grown. They might be selling on Amazon. They might be like, it's possibly gone beyond what they could have expected, and they've got so many transactions they don't know what to do with themselves.
I had one. I've just remembered.
Oh,
it's so
I love
funny. I forget that I have had these clients. Again, it was the fact that his mum was my client, and she said, he needs you. His business is blown up. And what he was doing was buying first and then selling retro football shirts.
Okay.
But it was called retro mystery shirts. And you didn't know which one you were going to get. And what he used to do is go to football grounds, and outside he'd do it wasn't TikTok back then, but he would do like a YouTube video or an Instagram where he'd have all these boxes and people would get to choose their mystery shirt. And then what he did was, which was so clever, and we had to really figure this out, he used to give commission to kids like teenagers, 11, 12 and 13-year-olds that wanted these shirts and wanted to play this game of what shirt am I going to get, and he'd have to pay them commission. And we were like, how are we paying these kids? How are we paying these kids?
Wow.
Yeah, so it blew up, and then it moved into stock and all of this, and then he sometimes would have supply issues like getting the shirts, and so it was good fun though.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love like how creative people are.
Yeah.
But this is exactly what we were saying. People don't get into business because they want to do the bookkeeping.
No.
They get into business because they're passionate. They see an opportunity and they're really good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So these are quite often the businesses that they thought it was a hobby, a side hustle, a bit of extra cash, and now it's become a big business. So potentially they could have been caught out by something like where they hadn't recorded VAT correctly or hadn't recorded VAT
overseas, like they've not been dealing with European sales correctly, or if they've been dealing with things from the US, and they've been miscalculating the VAT, or they've not registered for the taxes in the correct areas.
Yeah, okay. So we need to be really clued up on selling products or services overseas and what happens with VAT.
And if it's business to business or business to consumer.
And this is a really complex area. We have a lot of conversations about this in the community. So if you can know this really well, this gives you an opportunity to be the expert in this area.
Yeah, and it's very high volume transactions. So you're going to want to be somebody that loves the system, loves automation, loves figuring out how you're going to make the most of this, because there are so many transactions and lots of costs and stock and shipping fees and custom duties.
And different payroll processes as well. If they're selling on multiple platforms, you're going to get different kinds of reports that look different with different time frames. Money's coming in through PayPal, through Stripe, something else, WorldPay, it's going to look different, and you need to understand the nuances of the reports you're looking at, so that, because the client is going to say, well, this doesn't make sense. At some point, the client is going to say, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, they're going to be overwhelmed with it. You're also going to be dealing with the platforms that they're selling on. Maybe it's TikTok Shop, maybe it is Etsy, maybe it's Amazon. There's going to be lots of things you're going to have to understand. Maybe there's affiliate income coming in. So there is so much to do here. It looks very, very different to the other four categories, but I think some people just get this and get excited by it, and actually it can be highly automated when you understand it.
And you put the right piece of software in that can transform the data from this place into this and put it into the accounting software.
And lots of the time there isn't stock. Lots of the time it's fulfillment centres and bits and pieces.
Or
so
it's
understanding...
it's an e-product. It's a digital product that's being sold. So there's no actual movement of a product.
Yeah,
but
or courses.
Exactly. And understanding it, like you said, is that going to a business? Is that going to a consumer? How do I know? What country are they in? Have I collected the correct information? So we need to help our clients to understand how much of what they're selling. We're still recording transactions in the way that we would be doing bookkeeping. Potentially we're doing it in different currencies. They might want to know which platform's doing better for them. They might want to know which country's doing better so they can spend more money on online advertising, Facebook ads, etc. But this is going to be a very different skill set to some of those other business types we've set out. Yeah,
I think this is a very different kind of business compared to somebody that has a premises, has 5 members of staff, are invoicing on a monthly basis, that kind of thing. And so I've really enjoyed today because it really shows, I think we've struggled to explain what an ideal client looks like, and people do assume that it means just one industry, but you don't need to be that specific, but understand what are the mechanics behind the finance function in the business, and then try and group them in there. And like I've said, I've nearly had most be a client in nearly every one of these sectors.
Yeah.
And so it's not stopping you doing it, but who would you love to support? Who do you feel like, when you go through that list, who do you feel really comfortable with and think, oh, I've done that before, I enjoy that, and then find the people in that niche.
Nice. So 5 types of ideal client for you: service-based agencies, firms, trades, construction businesses, health and wellness businesses that have premises, professional services and franchises, and e-commerce that has scaled. We talk about this so much more in the Bookkeepers Collective, and if you want to find out more about your ideal client and building a gold standard service for that ideal client, have a look in the details underneath where we're sharing the link to the Bookkeepers Collective.